Page 213 continued. The insistence of Pyari's voice on the amorous phrases of the song, as well as the insidious fire of the dancers, lost in a maze of movement, the undertones of the harmonium and the overtones of the tambourines, 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 travelled through the twin hearts of Ratan and Munnu, till when the elements of music rose to a shrill height and the dancers spun round in the most tender, affecting, weirdly disturbing circles of joy and pain, and the whole atmosphere reached a wild, hysterical pitch of emotion, Ratan undid the upper folds of his loincloth and threw a rupee onto the harmonium with a shout of "Wah, wah! You have made me happy. Pyari, my life, my love." Pyari moved away from the tambourines and sank felinely into Ratan's lap, saying, "I am glad I have pleased you, but I want you to please me." "I am not the Rustam of Hindustan for nothing," said Ratan. "You wait till I get you between the legs." Bude Khan leered round at this, extending the corners of his dim eyes furtively. The two Nautch girls, Nautch Nautch girls, who had sunk to the floor, sat straddled against each other, arm in arm, head to head, in a kind of ecstasy, giggled at the wrestler's phrase. Munnu's heart reached out into the space about him, straining to touch the shores of the women's bodies like a wave, but it was beaten back before it got anywhere near them. Pari signed to Bude Khan again and sang the first verse of a second song with the most affected shuffle of her bangles, an arched glance of her eyes, a delicate movement of her head, and cast a spell over Ratan, which the lecherous accompanist drove home by just the right accent on the harmonium. Pyari stopped to receive the gift of another rupee, which prostitutes expect after the effective presentation of every verse of a song, once they have got the customer well in hand. "A little more dancing would please my boyfriend," said Ratan, cunningly evading the payment. Pyari signed to the dancers, laughing in the face of a look from Bude Khan which accused her of forgetting her business. End of page number 213. Now page 214. The girls rose slowly, rolling their almond eyes, which now showed the deep lines of the cosmetic around them under the smear of their thick eyebrows and their long black lashes. They took up the accents of Pyari's song on their fingers and, mounting the languid notes of the music, danced with a sudden shrill brilliance, insinuating all the love, the passion, the last of the poem, which elaborate artistry by the suggestions of their bodies, the swaying of their tapering arms, the balanced hurrying motion of snakes and vipers, the violence of panthers, the fine insinuating glides of innocent rose, rose, the slow motion of enchantresses casting spells, the fine frenzies of their dazzling olive skins had now been transmuted from the artificiality of make-up into the transparency of mirrors which reflected the strange color of their souls. Ratan had bawled out approbation at the lusty chords of the song, lashed his body. Ratan had bawled out approbation as the lusty chords of the song lashed his body. "Wah, wah, shabash," as is the custom to do in appreciating Indian music, for the audience is supposed to be an enthusiastic part of the performance and not a chilly embodiment of external criticism. At the end of the song, he took another rupee from his dhoti and put it as a douceur on a tray. The dancers glided away. Bude Khan shuffled out behind them. Munnu had been spellbound during the performance. Now he was agitated and he grew flushed and hot. "The boy must be tired," suggested Pyari meaningly. Yes, Munnu brother, you go home, said Ratan. It is late. I will follow you later. Munnu felt that he would die with the misery of not knowing what he wanted. That he wanted something he knew, but what? He did not know. He rose. Pyari patted him on the head. The boy was weeping bitterly as he rushed out. He returned from the street of pleasure long after midnight, through the sleepless Bombay streets where the eternally homeless coolies squatted, slept, moaned and gossiped outside closed shops, pale and ghastly under the glare of the gaslights. On the outskirts of the town, the roads were clear white in the uncanny darkness of the moonless night, but the deep ruts and pits of the plateau beyond them spread sinister and eerie, the more so because occasionally a firefly opened its jeweled wings on a rubbish heap, and suddenly an owl droned its heavy, ominous song of desolation from the midst of a palm grove. End of page number 214. Now page number 215. The queer disturbance in Munnu's soul after the excitement of the dance in Pyari Jan's salon seemed to become an oppressive weight on his chest. His brain reeled with the agitation of half-conscious desires that rose to his head like dim ghosts of thoughts. What is it I want? He asked himself as his body struggled along with its weight of fatigue and its burden of vague perturbation. And as he could not get an answer to his query, he walked in a jaded indifference. Then the tread of his feet seemed to become the giant stride of some monstrous demon who, in spite of his largeness, was uneasy and afraid of the evil spirits of the dark, which huddled together with dishevelled hair, glistening white teeth, and sharp claws with long nails extended to scratch one's eyes out. He closed his eyes to escape from the vision, but he stumbled and hit his left toe against a stone. Then he ran hard and came within sight of the tenements. The witches of the night had been left behind, and there were the bright points of a lamp in a hut, glistening with a comfortable glow. He felt he was safe, though the fear of the night still lingered in his bones. He walked up the stairs as if each breath he breathed were his last. Hari's wife was waiting for him, mending rags by the pale glimmer of an earthen saucer lamp, as she reclined against the wall, away from where everyone snored, moaned, or shifted sides in the enervating heat of the asphytic room. She looked at him with a pained, tender light in her eyes and strained to ask, Where have you been so late? Munnu stared at her. The tears that had ebbed up to his eyes when Pyari Jan put her hand on his head flowed into them again. He averted his glance from her and moved towards the part of the floor where he slept. When he looked up again, Lakshmi was bending over him with a trembling, wild light in her eyes and a warm flush in her cheeks. He shook his head and bent it low so as to escape the contact which his instincts wanted. She raised his chin with a gentle brush of her hand, and with all the pathos, all the tenderness of her mother's intuitive understanding of his need, kissed his forehead, murmuring in the faintest of whispers like an incantation, "We belong to suffering, we belong to suffering, my love," and she lay down by his side and took him in her arms, pressing him to her bosom with a silent warmth which made him ache with the hurt of her physical nearness, which tortured him, harassed him, making him writhe with all the pent-up fury of his end of page 215, now 216, of his adolescent passion, till in the in the magic hours of the dawn, it found an escape in death, in the temporary death of his body and in hers, It is difficult enough for anyone to face a Monday morning. It was like doomsday to the coolies, especially after they had lost themselves in the ecstasy of human relationships for a day and regained their souls. But on Monday mornings they returned to work. On Monday mornings they faced death again, and as if the monster of death were some invisible power which throttled them as soon as they set out to work, they walked to the factory in a kind of hypnotized state of paralysis, in a state of apathy and torpor, which made the masks on their faces assume the sinister horror of unexpressed pain. Why are they sad? Munnu wondered. Because he still had a little of the stored up vitality of his youth left in him, and he stared hard at them, shivering, weak, bleary, with twisted, ugly faces, black, filthy idiots looking in the smoky heavens as they sighed or murmured Ram Ram and the other names of God in greeting to each other and in thanksgiving for the gifts of the Almighty. The boy recalled his patron Prabha in Daulatpur used to say that everything was the blessing of God. Even Ganpat's ill treatment, the beating by the police, had given him and a fever of which he nearly died. That all suffering was the result of our having committed evil deeds. Perhaps these people also believed in karma. Hari indeed had often said so, and he had hoped that one day his luck would turn, because he had done some good deeds in his life. Ratan laughed at all such wisdom, and he alone went light-heartedly through life with a brave, handsome face beaming with smiles. He alone went with a pride and a swagger, while the other coolies cringed with humility. Munnu felt a superstitious awe for Ratan's fate. An overpowering sense of doom crept into his soul as he thought of him. He tried to dismiss his thoughts by repeating the Indian phrase, "I must not think of Ratan as handsome and lucky, lest my evil eye bring bad luck to him." But as if his thoughts were echo auguries, the smile on the wrestler's face faded one morning. It was the Chimta Sahib's habit to stand by the door of the preparing shed every morning to exact salams and other forms of homage from the coolies. A flourish of the hand, a curse, an oath or abuse was the greeting he offered in exchange. End of page number 216. Now page number 217. This conduct was well suited to the preservation of peace in the mill, as even the sight of his big beefy body cowed the coolies and put the fear of God into them, and they were then in the right frame of mind to perform their duties. Occasionally he kicked a coolie, but that was when he had got drunk early or quarrelled with Mrs. Thomas, and sometimes it was then he had read in the morning paper the news of a nationalist demonstration, a terrorist outrage, or an attempt at seditious communist propaganda, which he, as a member of the British race of India, considered to be more a personal affront than the pursuit of an ideal of freedom on the part of the exploited. He had long since forgotten the days during which he himself had eked out a miserable existence in Lancashire. Ratan was rather an independent-minded person. He did not bow down to salam the foreman. He had the confidence of his own personal strength, and behind that the strength of the union. He knew he was a good worker and deserved full pay at the end of the month. And when his pay was not forthcoming at the time when it was due, or when he was threatened with a cut for damaged cloth or for being late, he agitated. There was no love lost between Chimta Sahib and Ratan. Salam Sahib, the wrestler greeted the foreman cockily as he strode past him. Come here, called the Chimta Sahib in a sharp whisper. Yes, Huzur, said Ratan with mock ceremony, coming back. You are discharged, said the Chimta Sahib. But Sahib, what is my fault? Jao, you are discharged. Ratan looked at the foreman at first calmly, then he swayed like one struck to the heart, his full face concentrated into a knot of anguish, pride and power. Then his chin lifted a little, his teeth ground, the bad taste in his mouth, and the corners of his eyes were shot with gleams of fire. He stood upright, aching to express himself, to express the demon in him, the monster of pain which the actual knowledge of poverty, of the weakness of the people around him, and of their suffering had given him. It was as if this sudden blow to his dignity had gone like a shock of electricity through him and had illuminated his frame with the most intense sense of his own status. He raised his hand to strike, but the Chimta Sahib was moving away towards Nadir Khan, and Ratan could not violate the end of page 217, now page 218, chivalrous law of the wrestler by hitting his adversary on the back. He shook his arms and threw off the tremendous weight of a quiet power gathered in him. He loosened his muscles, bit his lower lip, and felt the blood in his glittering eyes turning to water. They say one must never pass behind a horse or before an officer, said Munnu consolingly. I will go and beg him to take you back. No, Ratan said coldly. I will show him a bit of my mind. Just you wait. And he rushed away to the office of the All India Trade Union Federation, half a mile away, believing he would be able to put his cause before Lala Onkar Nath, the president, who came from up country and who he knew would be sympathetic. I want to make a complaint to the president, he said to the clerk who sat on the veranda of the bungalow, which served as the office of the trade union committee. The clerk eyed him up and down and said the Sahib was busy. Ratan pressed a nickel piece of half a rupee into the man's hand. The clerk lifted the click at the door of the office, went in but returned automatically. The Sahib says he is very busy, he reported. He orders you to write to him if you have any complaints to make. I will write the application for you for a rupee. Ratan felt impotent with rage. He could have wrung the man's neck, but he realized that it was not the clerk's fault, and he sat down to dictate an epistle seeking redress through the union for the wrong he had suffered. There was the coming and going of many men in the room where Ratan lodged that evening. The rumour had spread that the wrestler had been discharged, and coolies came from all corners of the mill land to sympathize with him and to receive sympathy for the wrongs they too had suffered. But they were broken, dispirited, docile and reticent, and they only stared blankly through dim brown eyes or mumbled a conventional phrase in a meek and holy manner. Never mind, brother, this is the will of God. Or it is sad, but in this world the wicked seem to flourish and the good always to suffer. The misery of their lives had robbed them of all energy, till their souls seemed to have disappeared, and only a bare suggestion of the memory of pain hung around their faces like helplessness. End of page 218. Now page 219. About the limbs of a sick man, tenderness about the face of a child, and the weakness about the eyes of a dumb animal. About 8:30, however, arrived two Indian Sahibs, Sauda and Muzaffar, and an Englishman, Stanley Jackson, whom the coolies had often seen lecturing in the mill Maidan. We hear you have been discharged, Ratan, said Sauda. Yes, said Ratan, smiling nonchalantly. Did the foreman give you any reason? Asked the Englishman in broken Hindustani. No, Sahib, said Ratan, but he has been waiting for an opportunity to do this for some time. I don't care about that so much as the insulting behavior of Lala Onkarnath, the president of our union, in refusing to see me. Why didn't you come to us? Said Muzaffar. You have suffered because of your association with us. We have to take up your cause. Don't be downhearted. I had hoped to get a job somewhere else, said Ratan, and thought that if I came to you, it would be known all over the mill world, that would jeopardize my chances. Why not go to Chimta Sahib? Put in Munnu, who sat eagerly listening to the conversation and rather excited by the dramatic visit of the red flag union officials to the room. Oh no, there is no question of that, said Sauda with a flourish of his hand. Do not all the insults your people suffer rouse you from the apathy to which you have succumbed? Does not all the misery, all the degradation you suffer rouse you to indignation? I tell you that they have ground you down. They have fleeced and sweated you. They have tortured your lives enough. That is so, said Hari, shaking his head as he sat bent with his curved spine. Look at the room you live in, began Sauda. It is big enough to house you all. Is it big enough to house you all? And thousands of you are content to live in these tenements and straw huts which have no paved road, no playground, nor a garden. How can you live like this? At the best 6 months, and then you will go home to die. And those children of yours sweat hard all day for an anna and get stunted and never grow up. When will you wake up? When will you come to your senses? Don't take the offense at what the Sahib is saying, said Muzaffar, cautiously taking the sting off the vehement reproaches of Sauda. End of page number 219. Now page 220. The Sahib loves you. He too has suffered from poverty, and he knows a law with which to remove poverty if you will learn it. He will establish schools for your children, said the Englishman. More than schools, said Sauda. You want food. Your hands spin the cotton and weave the cloth on those machines. At home, your hands plowed the fields and produced the cotton. Your brethren plant grain and reap the harvest under the heat of the sun. They build the roads, work in the mines and on the plantations. The big employer, Sahib, takes away all that you produce to Vilayat and gives you a bare pittance with which you can hardly pay the rent, buy food, clothe yourself or pay your debts. You work for a while and then go away to die in the old village, and the old other men come to take your place. An epidemic of cholera starts and you are swept off. Now tell me, are you content to let your masters treat you like that? No, said Ratan. By God, no. But what can we do, Sahib? Said a visiting coolie. You are a clever man and like a sahib, so you can fight the other sahibs. But who are we to protest? You are human beings, said Sauda fiercely. Have you forgotten your notion of izzat? Would you let anyone throw away the turbans of your head? No, replied the coolie. But then, where is your idea of izzat gone? Asked Sauda. Where is your sense of dignity? Where is your manhood? I am a man, boasted Ratan, striking his hand on his chest. That is why you have been discharged, said Munnu jocularly. You are too proud of being a wrestler. Everyone laughed at this and the atmosphere became less tense for a moment. Then Hari spoke clearly, shrugging his shoulders. We have to work for someone. If not for the Chimta Sahib, then for someone else. Yes, you have to work, said Sauda. Work is good, but now you sweat 11 hours a day and get bad pay. If you do what I tell you to, your hours will get shorter and your pay will be increased. What shall we do, Sahib? Asked Hari. You must walk out of the mill, all of you. and refuse to work till your hours are shortened, your pay increased, your children given schools until you are able to be given new houses. You can go on strike, said the Englishman quietly. End of page number 220. Now page number 221. I shall, said Ratan. You are already on strike. Munnu teased his friend. The other coolies remained silent. They knew that they had to slave hard, that they were being sweated and fleeced, that they were being starved to death slowly, but they thought of their immediate necessities during a strike, of the food their children would want, and of their own hunger, and they were afraid and hung their heads. Think about what we have said Muzaffar reasonably. Meanwhile, Ratan, brother, you had better come and see us tomorrow, and we shall see what can be done. Salam Sahib, said the coolies said. Salam, salam, salam. The three communists returned and walked down the stairs. Munnu was very excited and enthusiastic.